Welcome to HR as the White Swan. This is Season 3, Episode 4. What is the White Swan? That is where positive energy comes from. In the world of human resources, you know your workforce can be subjected to a variety of negatively impacting emotional events, the darkness, the pandemics, the unrest. All these things play a role in how employees and associates react to their daily lives and impact productivity. And HR is that counterbalance to bring positive energy and positive messaging. I'm Elliot Clark, the CEO of HRO Today. We publish HR Today magazine, HRO Today EMEA, and HRO Today APAC, as well as produce the HRO Today forums held around the world, and we are the managers of the HRO Today Association. This podcast is sponsored by Madison Performance, one of the leading providers of rewards and recognition programs and the top provider on our HRO Today Baker's Dozen for rewards and recognition. I'm joined today by Judd Weisgal, the Senior Vice President of Madison Performance, who's been sharing his perspective throughout these White Swan podcasts. And as you know, each of the 9 podcasts in a season correlate to the letters in the words White Swan. So episode 4 is all about the T. So let's talk about T. And T is for transparency. Transparency and proper budgeting. Okay, this is a really important part of rewards and recognition is the financial impacts and the ability, we hope, to look at reward on investment. Judd, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Always fun to be here.
So tell us, you've worked with some of the largest companies in the world doing some very, very large programs on rewards and recognition. Transparency means a lot of different things from the standpoint of HR, other executives, the associates. What do you see as the best practices around transparency and proper budgeting?
Well, I think that it's important to sort of have a safety announcement as we start, which is buckle up, put on your safety gear, and take a deep breath, because some of the things I have to say, they're not easy to hear, but they're really, really, really important to share. And it sounds like this. Many companies, Elliot, are hurting themselves immeasurably because they're not necessarily transparent or appropriate with what they're budgeting and how they're budgeting and what they're sharing about it. And I have 5 million users on our platform that can share these feelings. And so it's not just a Judd thinks scenario, right? Or a we think. It's a sample from what I hear all the time when I speak to folks about their programs. And I have 3 comments here that I pick out of our comments that we received. And they sound like this. I worked here for 20 years and I got a $20 gift card. $1 a year, thanks. They cut all the programs. I was in first place. I would have won a vacation after exceeding my goals for the year. This stinks. My team was awarded $50 each as a bonus for a project that took months to complete and hundreds of hours of extra time. $50, not worth it. So what do these things have in common? I think it's that giving the wrong thing is just as bad, if not worse, than giving nothing at all. And in both cases, you failed your people. If there's anyone listening to this who thinks that an employee paycheck and benefits are more than enough, then you've missed the point of all the research in the last 2-3 decades. And that would be a shame because it's a missed opportunity to get better results from and for your people. And the thing is, let's be candid. These bad recognition moments are happening because budgets aren't appropriate. And in many cases, we make excuse for this. We make excuses for why it's like that. Your employees aren't crazy, neither are you. So I'm always unsure of why, when it comes to your reward and recognition budgeting, the stories we tell ourselves and our people are so lacking in credibility. Every HR professional I speak to, Elliot, they come to me with goals. They have objectives based on all the new research and studies and things they want to achieve with their programs, and they come to me prepared in every single way except for one, with the money to make it happen. And it's the equivalent of cutting advertising budgets and efforts and then expecting to reach a wider audience. It won't work. So we need to be honest with one another about what it takes to achieve certain goals, how not to offend your people with incorrect or no recognition at all, and then be transparent about the things that may need to change or improve before the budgets can follow suit. The other thing employees will do is look at what you are spending money on and judge that. For better or for worse, they're doing that all the time, and we have to address it. Remember how I said communication is the key? Well, here's another example. When employees see low budgets or cut budgets, they look around, they take stock, and if it isn't communicated why things are the way they are, then they fill in the gaps themselves. And typically, they start with their own role, their own contribution, and then how they feel about that all. I talked previously about backing into budgets, and to reiterate, that's sort of like when you come up with a number haphazardly or take an existing budget but applying new goals and objectives to it. And that's a math problem that never adds up. It can't. New goals, new objectives, new plan, new budget. And maybe it's more, but maybe it's even less. It just has to be planned for and properly calculated and communicated, and it rarely is, and therein lies the problem. It's disingenuous to expect more for less, and when it's possible, it's only for short term. More for less is not a strategy that can be sustained when it comes to your human capital long term. And people want to be in the know. Information makes them feel like they're part of it, like they have a voice and a sense of being heard. It makes them feel respected. So consider transparency in your budgets. Consider proper funding to support the goals and objectives you're laying out. Create an ROI model for it and roll forward. It's about planning, measurement, and communication, all those key factors. And without them, this won't work. But I'll carry this into our next episode as well, Elliot.
All right. Well, thank you for the tease. I usually have to do that part. I'm going to argue both sides of the issue for just a minute. We're coming out of this global pandemic. There have been all kinds of global shutdowns of economies, et cetera. So many companies have had to cut budget. It sounds to me like part of what we're saying is the employees know that, they see that, they've had it in some cases been furloughed, take comp cuts, et cetera. But why is it that companies are not seeing this as part of variable comp? I mean, R&R budgets are probably less than 1% of the overall company budget, and that's still money. I mean, I grant you in times of austerity, everything needs to be looked at hard. But why aren't they factoring in the psychological impact of that example you gave earlier where somebody, has been working all year long toward getting to a president's club or getting a bonus based on performance, a $2,000 gift card for achieving their goals or whatever that number might be, even if it's $50. And then all of a sudden that goal and all the work they've done to achieve it is erased. Why are we not looking at the emotional impact on that associate more closely and saying, hey, we need to do a better job explaining why, or simply not cutting that cost?
I wish we had another, 45 minutes, right? I mean, it's so
that was a hard
massive.
question. It's a big question, I grant you, yeah.
It's a massive topic, right? But at a high level, just a high level, there are many scenarios. And I always reiterate it when we talk about this. You, I, any business person with any savvy understands when budgets need to be pulled back or cut because of the last year. But I think we're focusing more on a long-term effect here. When things were good and they'll be good again and they're getting good now for some organizations, we have to just look at what is it like in a best-case scenario to make best use of our people, our budgets for reward and recognition, how to apply that, so on and so forth. Why I think that when all things considered equal and times are normal, that those things don't happen and we don't take a close look at it is many-fold. It's a combination of things being the way they've always been, no one taking a look at it, fear of asking for budget, the lack of making a case and creating a case for it. It just goes on and on and on. But the challenge becomes, what impact is that having? And then what are the other costs that happen because that cost was ignored? If we're losing star talent, if we're disengaging people, as we talked about in a previous podcast, these things and many others cost companies tons of money, but they don't seem to measure this in the same way. So when you ask, why isn't this being considered as part of variable comp? I don't know, and I wish I did, and it should be. But my hope is that through these podcasts, these questions come up. Folks start engaging people like myself and their other vendors and saying, look, we want to make a case for this. How can we do that?
Great points. And yes, next time I ask you a question that is that far-reaching, we'll retitle the podcast Tuesdays with Judd, because it would be it's a long answer, but I hear you, man. Thank you to Judd Weisgal. Judd is the Senior Vice President of Madison Performance. It's our top-rated provider for rewards and recognition globally, and you would do well to check out Madison Performance. Get in touch with them if you'd like some advice and perspective. I'm Elliot Clark, the CEO of HRO Today. Stay tuned for episode 5 of season 3, which will be an enterprising effort to address this issue. Thank you, and we'll look forward to having you join us on the next podcast.
To listen to additional podcasts in the White Swan series, visit www.madisonpg.com. On their website, you can also speak to Judd Weisgal to discuss this topic or to speak to him about your rewards and recognition program.